My name is Patrick McGinnis, and I'm the guy who invented the term FOMO. That's short for fear of missing out. Today, FOMO is an epidemic, and it's changing us so much that it sort of feels like we're evolving into a new species. But FOMO doesn't have to take over your life. You can find the power to choose what you actually want and the courage to miss out on the rest. I'll show you how right here on FOMO Sapiens. Welcome to FOMO Sapiens, the show about finding the power to choose what you actually want in business and life, and the courage to miss out on everything else. I'm Patrick McGinnis, your host and the creator of the term FOMO, and I'm here today talking about something totally different on FOMO Sapiens. Ever since I started this show, I've wanted to have a young person on the show, but I never kind of knew who the right person was, and I decided that just let the universe provide that to me, and then boom, I meet today's guest, who is somebody who has got a totally interesting perspective on the world. And so I decided to invite him in here as a person of his age who can tell us how young people see the world and also tell us a lot about a lot of other things. Because Diego is a young man of action, having started several companies. So if you've ever wanted to challenge yourself, build something new, or get out of your comfort zone, you can actually learn a lot from our guest today. And that guest is Diego Gonzalez. He is a 12-year-old entrepreneur that currently attends Hunter College High School in New York City. His current venture is Microlisa, a health device that diagnoses lung cancer in a cheap and safe way. He has won first place at the Higher Ed Blockchain Hackathon held at the Parsons School of Design, second place at the Techstars Startup Weekend, and second place at the MIT Grand Hack for Medicine. His writings have been featured in The Parenthetical and The Ellipsis, and I have him here with me today. Diego, welcome to FOMO Sapiens.
Thanks for having me over.
Yeah, it's good to have you. How are you doing today?
Tired.
Tired. You're not supposed to be tired. You're 12. All right, so pretty awesome bio there, I'm going to say.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed reading it. I'm sure you enjoyed doing all those things. But I want to start out with the question that I always ask my guests when they come on the show, which is, everybody feels a little FOMO. It's natural. So what is it that turns you into a FOMO sapien?
Well, I really feel that like the stuff that turns me into a FOMO sapien and gives me FOMO is really like the social life around me, less the academic life because there's nothing that I'm really missing out there. But I feel that if like I don't have something for like a certain weekend and I come back the next day, everybody will be laughing about something and I won't know what that is and I'll like kind of miss out on that. I feel like I have to divide my time into like so many places.
Yeah. So you're a busy guy. You got to decide what to focus on. I mean, these are eternal problems that I guess a lot of us have, but it's good to know that you recognize it anyway, right?
Yeah.
So before we get going and talk about specifics, I just want to kind of tell everybody about yourself, where you're from, tell us about your family, what you like to do, what's your day job, all that sort of stuff.
I'm 12. I live here in NYC. It's the best city in the world, and I'm proud to be here. Just for me, my day job is going to school, studying, getting good grades, and my hobbies are like really just like being an entrepreneur, student by day, entrepreneur by night, and just like hanging out with my family and friends.
That's cool. So that's a 10% entrepreneur
Yeah.
right there, if I ever heard of one. 10% entrepreneur, and I'm sure many of our listeners know, but somebody who has a day job or studies and then has entrepreneurial ventures on the side, which you have done, as we heard about in the intro. So tell me about, I mean, you've been at this, first of all, when did you first do your first venture? How did that go? What are your new ventures? Like, what are the kinds of things you've done in the world of entrepreneurship?
By like really venture-y ventures, I feel like the first one has really been StudentPeer, one that I did at the Techstars Weekend Hackathon, which was a peer-to-peer tutoring system. But like way before that, when I was little, I am little.
How little are you talking?
Like 7 or 8.
Okay.
What I did was that I went to this entrepreneurial market, and at that time I'd been like writing a bunch of stories, and I folded them up, stapled them together, and went to the market and kind of sold them.
Wow.
And then that was really like one of the first entrepreneurial things that I did.
And how do you, as you think about this, like, where did you get the idea to start working on these projects? Did you read something? Did you see something? Is it something that you did with your family? Like, where did it all come from?
So it really came from like a night when I was 5, and my dad we were just settling down to go to sleep, and he opened his laptop and he handed me one, and he showed me this program called Scratch, which MIT developed to try to teach kids how to code. And he kind of showed me around. We watched some quick YouTubes, closed the laptops, and the next day we went to Scratch Day, which was an event where basically a bunch of like people came together and showed their ideas on Scratch. And then from there, I really like enjoyed coding. So I went to I don't know if it was summer camp kind of, called Pixel Academy, where I learned how to code in Unity and C++ and stuff like that. So I really like this coding kind of stuff. And then when I was like in second grade, some of my friends were doing this writing workshop, and I really wanted to join in on that. So I signed myself up, and basically I wrote my stories and then would stand in front of people and read it to them, kind of like practicing how to get over my now non-existent fear of public speaking.
Wow. Yeah, I know. You're doing really well, by the way. I mean,
Thanks.
Congratulations. So, so you talk about these ventures that you started. I'm curious. First of all, do most of your friends also do this, or are most of your friends coding? Like, how many kids at your school are doing these kinds of things? Are you kind of unique in that way? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I don't think anybody does these things. I know a lot of kids who like code, but they do that so that they can create video games and stuff, which was originally like my side of it.
Yeah.
Because my parents didn't let me play video games. They were like, no. And I kind of thank them for that, because that's like one of the reasons why I kept going on with coding. They were like, if you can code your own, I have no problem with you playing it.
Wow, you hear that, parents? It's funny you say that. Last night I was at a friend's house. These people, the friends he's from Argentina, she's Canadian, and she made all these cookies, and I said like, wow, these cookies are great. Did you make them yourself? And she said, my mother had one rule when I was a kid. We would never buy anything that was out of the store or out of a box, but if we could figure out how to make it ourselves, she'd get the ingredients for anything. So she knew how to make cakes and cookies and everything. It's kind of the same thing. It's like, we're not going to buy you the video game, but we're going to let you to build it yourself.
Yeah.
Wow. And so tell me, so you started going to these hackathons, and you had support from your family, and then you did your first kind of one, which was this student peer-to-peer network. And so like, how did it go?
I
assume
well.
It's now traded publicly on the stock market? Or?
No. No, that really didn't turn into like much. Just because of like some restraints like within trying to get into my own school. But basically I went to this hackathon. It was one weekend. I showed up there the first day. I wasn't like registered for the hackathon or anything, which is usually how like I start out at hackathons. My dad kind of finds one. He goes and mentors, try to like offer his skills, and I tag along every time. And then like suddenly like I felt this inspiration. I got the microphone. I went up. I pitched my idea, and they actually selected mine.
Wow.
They voted on them, and then the like top 5 were kind of selected, and then that was one of mine. So my dad signed me up, and for the rest of the day I worked on it, built a team, kind of sat down figuring out some things about it, and then next day I got a fever, so I had to stay home.
Entrepreneurial fever.
They're the best. So I came in like halfway into the next day and kept working and stuff. And then I like kept feeling really sick, so like a couple minutes before the final pitch, I arrived at the place. Like my idea had changed a lot because they'd been like working at it and stuff. I read the pitch, looked at the slide deck, and got up there and pitched it, and I think it went really well.
That's awesome, and that's the great thing about having a team, right? Is that maybe you can't be there the whole time, but if you shared your vision, then people can continue working on it. Yeah. And so now that was which business was that one?
That was the StudentPeer one.
Okay, and so you did that one, and I know it's no longer in living, so I guess it was a failure. So how did that feel? I mean, a lot of people are afraid of failure. What's your thought on failure?
Well, my thought is kind of, hope for the best and plan for the worst. But as a kid, I'm not really afraid of failure, because if anything does go south, then I can still go home, eat some scoops of ice cream, and like feel normal again.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's like important to start at an early age for entrepreneurship, because there's just so much more like availability and options, because you don't have to be as scared or have things go like as great, because if something does go wrong, you still have a place to go to and like stay there.
Right, you got a roof over your head.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you learn, like, do schools teach entrepreneurship these days?
Not really. I've been lucky to have some really great teachers. So one of my teachers last year, she showed us like a bunch of like TED Talks on entrepreneurs and stuff,
Wow.
and we learned about like being gritty and stuff like that. So that definitely helped. But no, it's not really taught as part of the curriculum, which I feel like is a big mistake right there.
Yeah, that's a big opportunity, an opportunity for an entrepreneur to solve, maybe. And you think about, you said obviously your dad has been a huge impact on you. Do you have certain entrepreneurs that you look up to, that inspire you, that kind of help you to think about, okay, maybe I could do this someday?
No, not really, because there's none that are like my age that I
Right.
really know of.
Right.
But like anybody out there, really just like figuring out what they did right and what they did wrong, and seeing how I could learn from that is really helpful.
Right, and you have learned. I mean, as you go ahead and do these ventures, like what have been the big things that you've learned as you've kind of tried different things and succeeded or failed or changed or pivoted? Like, what are your big learnings?
Well, I really think at the same hackathon, the Latinx one, you show up the first day, there are a bunch of people interested in your idea. Some join in, some leave, some go for other groups. So I think the idea is definitely important, but it's not the most important thing. If you have a really strong team that can stick together, if that idea goes wrong, you can pitch another one and go working at that. And then if it's not really the vision they're focused on, but the team itself, then they can like pivot easily to go whichever way they need to.
Right. And for those who haven't been to a hackathon, I imagine some of our listeners have been to a hackathon, but probably a lot haven't. What is a hackathon? Like, how does it work?
So it's usually a one weekend thing that starts like late night on Friday. So a bunch of smart people come together and try to hack some of the world's problems. And yeah, by hack I don't mean like computer viruses and stuff. I mean like
not the dark web.
Yeah, coming together and figuring out a solution for it. Sometimes using machines and technology, but other times simply like creating it from scratch. Those are called more make-a-thons instead of hackathons, but same kind of idea.
I've never heard that term before. I learned something new today.
Yeah.
And so as you go to these, I know you have this new venture you're working on, I'd love if you talk about that and how you came up with the idea, and is this the one where you got the free office space? Is that right?
No, I got a free office space in Soho from the StudentPeer one.
Okay, everybody who's listening to this podcast, if you need office space in Soho, call Diego, because he has an office space. I might take you up on that. I mean, that's awesome. Okay, so I'd love to hear about this new the lung cancer business.
So basically, it was at the Grand Hack hosted by MIT at Mount Sinai, and it was really, I came in there having minimal knowledge. My dad being a mentor and having me brought me along. This time a friend had also come along, which was a rare occurrence, the first. But I went there, and turns out we got the lung cancer track, which was one of them. So I did some quick facts about lung cancer, and I saw like, oh, it's tumors over here. And then a guy came up on stage and he presented that if you could diagnose it earlier, like the survival rates would like go like way up, and like people wouldn't die. And I was like, why hasn't anybody like really taken that into account? And then we went to our separate tracks, to our room and stuff. And then they said, whoever has an idea, come up and pitch. I was like, whoa, like I have an idea. Why don't we just detect like lung cancer earlier? And my friend was like, wait, you can't do that. Like, these are all adults, right? And I was like, somebody should have told me that earlier, right? And he was like, oh, okay, go ahead. So I went up there and I kind of was like, wait, like, why does everyone think that, like, this is just for adults? This is for anybody.
Yes.
And I went up there, I pitched my idea. I was like, God, let's detect lung cancer earlier. I don't really know how to do it, but let's figure it out. And then we kind of huddled around our ideas and waited for people to come to try to join our teams. And nobody came to mine. There was one person who came, and then I saw everybody kind of drifting over to group number 1. So I was like, oh, let's go figure out what's going on over there. And then he was like, oh, let's use app-based stuff, I think, to try to, build something to try to detect earlier. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. But one of the major problems with this issue is that smokers don't want to actually go get the test done.
Yes.
So I was like, what if we seamlessly integrated it into annually or monthly checkups, right? Kind of like a mammogram.
Yes.
And then he was like, oh yeah, that can't be done. I was like, can we make it a shot? Just stick it into me and tell me. And then everybody around me, there were some scientific engineers and stuff, and they were like, well, I guess we could kind of make that work. And then the next day came around, that same team kind of huddled around, and we figured out that if we could make it some kind of thing where you pinch your finger as a diabetic test, that would be really easy and seamlessly integrated. So throughout the rest of the hackathon, we kind of figured out some specifics, and we came out with this idea for a product and this business plan. And now we're just taking some next steps to further that.
That's so cool. And what I love about your story, I mean, for those who, first of all, I remember when I was an MBA student, there was a business plan competition, and I didn't join, I didn't enter, because I guess I was like, oh, I don't have an idea, or I don't know what that is, or now I look back and I'm like, what a lost opportunity, right? So I always tell people, if you have the opportunity to do something like this, do it. Because what's the worst that can happen? It's one weekend of your life. And if you fail, you can still go home and have your ice cream, right?
Yeah.
But number 2 is, what I love about what you just told us is that you didn't know going in what this was. It wasn't like you had some big idea that you've been researching for 6 months. And you had the curiosity to say, here's an idea, and work with other people, which is exactly how entrepreneurs build companies. So I think it's just a great lesson for anybody who might wonder how these things actually happen or how they might do it, is to go in with maybe a vision and then be really open-minded about what the solution could be. That's pretty cool. And so what do you think, as you're in these rooms and you have people that may see oh, he's just a kid. Do you find that people generally are supportive, or do you have some people that give you a little attitude? How do you deal with those things?
So really, for the most part, what I try to do when I am there is everybody, their first thing is whoa, that's a kid. And then they're like, oh, he's probably just gonna be here with his dad and stuff. And then what I try to do is be the first person who pitches. Yeah. So I go up there and they're like, oh, he's gonna say, oh, why don't we just cure cancer and stuff? And then I come up with this great idea and whoa, that actually makes sense. That's amazing. And then the thing that I really see and realize is that not only do I inspire people of my age, but also people that are older than me. They go well, if he can do it, I can too. And then after that, everybody started lining up to pitch, because they were yes, this 12-year-old kid just came up here and gave me this great idea. I'm pretty sure I can do that. So it kind of works both ways.
And maybe their ideas aren't as good as yours, but at least they have the courage. I mean, I'm sure there are some really stinky ones, and yours is a really good one, so it's not easy to get as good an idea, but it's great that, I think it's great that people feel comfortable taking a little risk. As you've mentioned before, I mean, it's all about, what's so important is we tend to be our own worst enemy. And if you just have the courage to try, maybe you will have a good idea. So it makes a lot of sense to me. What is, as you think about mistakes, I'm sure that you do once in a while make a mistake. What's the biggest mistake you've made, and what did you learn from it?
Well, one of the great mistakes that I've made really is not preparing the pitch deck enough. Because when you think of your idea in your head, you're like, "Whoa, this is the best idea. This is the greatest idea. I want to make a gazillion dollars off of it." But if not everybody sees your idea as that, then they're just like, "Next."
Yeah, exactly. Next.
So really focusing on the pitch deck and trying to communicate the idea to the world, and not only see it as this great vision inside your head, is really important.
And what do you think, let's fast forward. So, the amazing thing about, and I think we all learn this as you get older, is you're not, every year you get 1 year older. And so at some point you may be the oldest person in the room someday, right? But as you think about where you want to be in 5 years, when you're 18, I guess that's 6 years if I got to do my math. or you think about like what you want to study, or I don't know. Some people say you don't even need to go to school to be an entrepreneur. I'd encourage you to consider going to college. I think that'd be a good experience. But what do you think having learned all these things now, like what do you want to do?
Well, that's a question I get asked a lot. Like, on the side, I also dance. I can use a DJ set, I ballet, tap, jazz, ballroom.
Wow.
I do a lot of things on the side. I can write pretty well. And I pride myself on being like okay at a lot of sports.
A polymath.
Yeah, so when people go like, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, there's just so many things that I can do. I think being an entrepreneur is one of the best because you can combine all these things that you really like to do and figure out a way to like communicate these ideas with other people. Maybe like you can use your dance skills to try to promote, fundraisers for diseases and stuff. And maybe you could use that incredible soccer skill to like try to figure out how to build like an app to find pickup games easier and like that kind of stuff. So being an entrepreneur is a really great way to incorporate things from like all aspects of your life and try to create into a vision. And then eventually, of course, make some like hard cash off of it.
Yeah. Well, you need it. Of course, you want to pay the bills, but it's true. What you've said is there's so many people, and that are when they're younger and growing up, they do lots of stuff. They do sports and music and dance and maybe start a small business. Like not everybody does all those things, but like some of those things, right? I remember when I was probably around your age, I had like 50 gazillion hobbies. I was a lot like you, and then when I went to college and I started working, I had like no free time, and so I didn't do anything. And now that I'm more entrepreneurial, I'm able to integrate the things I love into my day job. So definitely one of the benefits of entrepreneurship is you have the flexibility to decide what you want to do all the time, and so you can take all your talents and apply them, which is really cool. Tell me something. I want to switch gears a little bit here because now that I'm going to make you like my guinea pig for all of us who like wonder what's going on in the life of a 12-year-old. Obviously, you're a New York City 12-year-old, so that's different. Yes. That's a specific breed of 12-year-old. Yeah. But tell me about your technology use. Like, do you have a cell phone? Do you have social media accounts? Like, what's going on there?
Well, this little guy right here.
Boom, there it is.
So I do have a cell phone.
It matches the cup. If you can't see this if you're listening, but we have cups on set that kind of match his phone. So anyway.
My phone, like I mostly just use to text my friends and stuff like that. I feel like, my parents feel like I use my phone like a whole lot. And I also feel like I use my phone like maybe a bit too much, more than is good for me. But I also feel that like relative to other people, like I see people who like go like, oh, like what do you mean? Oh, my screen time was only 8 hours yesterday. And I'm like, wait, what? So you just spent like maths, one sec, a third of your day on your phone.
Half of your waking day, right? Assuming you're getting your 8 hours, which nobody does, but still.
Like just being on your phone, and this is like a giant waste of time actually, because you could be doing so many other things, and instead you were just like scrolling through your Instagram feed and stuff.
Yes. And speaking of that, do you have Instagram?
No, I don't have any social media.
Do your friends have that
That's
stuff?
by choice.
Yeah, good for you. Do most of your friends have them?
Yeah, most of my friends do have everything. They're really like glued onto them, and I'm kind of worried.
What does your school do? Like, does your school control this kind of stuff?
Oh, my school is the best if you're a phone user. It's if you're in the classroom, don't get caught with your phone on. If you're in the hallways,
wow, so
whatever.
It's open rain.
Yeah.
And what about just in general, like how many hours a day do you think you're like using the internet and your phone and stuff like that?
Well, my phone I only use like maybe an hour or 45 minutes a day. But like using, I probably only use like 30 minutes. But the internet I use a lot, and that's because all of my homework is online, Google Drive, Google Docs, Word, and I'm just using all of these things and typing a bunch. So I feel like I definitely use the internet like at least like 3 to 4 hours a day, maybe less.
And your school, I mean, obviously it's like totally integrated.
Yeah.
Into your school. You have to understand, for like anybody who grew up before the internet was. It's
Yeah.
like kind of a mind blower. I'm like, whoa, like you have your computer and you have like do you have tablets or you have like computers?
No, we don't have computers in school. We have them outside of school, but everything gets uploaded to a website. So instead of like having to keep track of all your homework assignments in your head, you just go on the website, click on it, and then you have your homework assignment. And basically, the thing that they do is they give you a Google account, and then from there you kind of just organize your drive with all the files. So you type up your English homework, you type up your social studies homework, sometimes you even type up your math homework. And then you just have them all there, so then like whenever something happens, maybe you're at school and you have some free time, right? You can just like open up like any computer anywhere and then keep working on your like research paper.
And do you like email with your teachers and stuff?
No, not really. I feel like I did it like a lot last year.
But they give you their email address or like
Yeah,
email me,
yeah,
you
you
know.
have all of their email addresses and stuff, but I don't really use
So
that
interesting.
much.
And what about do you find that like there's a lot of, I guess, does the school give you guidance about how to be a good digital citizen, how to use the internet responsibly? Like, do you get taught that? Is that a thing you learn at home or at school, or like how does that work?
No, it's definitely way more at school than at home. Like at school, we have this class called Seminar, which is basically it's only a class for 7th graders. So it's a class on like organization and just figuring out parts of your life. So we have like people come in and talk about bias, people come in and talk about like web safety, internet safety, where we just started like a unit on it.
Wow.
So it's actually taught in school a lot. And we also have like health class, which is like I feel like it's more like social and sexual health, but sometimes it does like veer off onto like internet and online health. And yeah, I definitely feel like at school they do put a lot of, like since I've been in school, like since 5th grade onward, I think there's really been like a lot of focus on like cyberbullying and like posting mean things, strange things, stuff like that.
That's really good because it is kind of scary. I assume like that's something that you probably see at school and it's something that needs to be dealt with. So it's good that they're talking about it. I don't know if they're talking about it at every school, but at least, do you think it helps? Like, what is the big thing you've learned from that?
Well, the big thing that I've learned from that is really if you do post anything or say anything that's like on technology or by text, you have to be, you have to want to see your teachers. Like you want your teachers to be able to read it and like be perfectly fine with it.
Yes.
I say not my parents because I feel like my parents would be like slightly more tolerant. But like, you know, your teacher's looking at it like from academic or professional standpoint. If you don't want other people to see it, then you probably shouldn't be like saying it at all.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb, a good heuristic. It's the classic, it's the old thing, like if you don't do anything you wouldn't want to see written about in the newspaper. Is a thing. I mean, we all sometimes do stupid things, but you try. All right, so
about the schools, I actually feel like it is being, like, at least in New York, I've been to 3 schools already, and I've, like, taught it about, like, at every single school. So maybe it's, like, growing a little bit. I'm not really sure, like, in a complete mindset, but everybody that I do know has at least had, like, 1 classroom period dedicated to it.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
I feel good about that.
They've been doing a really good job.
That's cool. Well, Diego, you've told us so many, I mean, I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I feel pretty inspired to go do a hackathon this weekend or something. So if you need people on your team, you should tell me. This is the show about finding the power to choose what you actually want in business and life and the courage to miss out on everything else. So if somebody's listening today and they're like, man, I want to do something like that. I want to go start a company. I want to try something new. Like, what's your advice to anybody, kid, adult, anybody?
Yeah, well, about missing out and, like, fear of, like, picking something and doing something. I usually like to think back at this moment in Moab, Utah. I was standing on top of this cliff looking out 80 feet over the side. And at that point, like, I was pretty scared, but I wasn't thinking about, should I get a helicopter? Should I just, like, go back around the way we came? No, I put my harness on and set over to the side and went, like, this is, like, the option that I have now. This is a good one. I should probably focus on this instead of staying up here for the rest of my life and becoming like some statue on top of there. And I just went straight down, you know. it's really not about picking like the greatest and best option. Even if you have to settle for second best, it is an option, you know? If you like come up to a wall, you're not gonna wait around until somebody builds a door into the side of it. You're gonna climb over it.
Yeah. That's great advice. I like that. That's some wisdom. All right, and if people want to follow your adventures and learn more about you, where can they do that?
Well, I wish I had a website. I've actually been thinking about getting a LinkedIn because everybody keeps asking me like, "Oh, you have a LinkedIn?" And I'm like, "No, I'm 12. I don't have anything."
I know it's kind of weird, right?
It's strange.
It would be there's going to be a right time for that. It may not be right now, but I think, people, you just need to be, you need to set your Google alert for Diego to make sure that, in a couple of years when he's doing even more exciting things that you get informed about it. And of course, maybe we'll have you back on the show to tell us about some of your adventures in the future.
Thanks.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. And now I want to obviously transition to the final part of the show, the part that is our FOMO moment of the week. And today's FOMO moment of the week comes from a trip that I just took recently, and it shows you that FOMO is literally everywhere. So I happened to be in Cairo, Egypt, and I was speaking at this annual meeting for a group called Endeavor, which if you don't know about it, endeavor.org, it's an incredible entrepreneurship organization. And I started talking about FOMO, and I thought maybe a few people in the room would know about it. There were probably about 100 people there. And so I said, who in this room knows about the term FOMO? And about 75 people raised their hands, including in the front row, the woman who was the Minister of Industry and Trade. And so afterwards we got to chat, and she said, I have terrible FOMO. I love that you were here. It's incredible. And I thought to myself, if you can go halfway across the world to Cairo, Egypt, and find people with FOMO and that actually know the word, clearly my work is cut out for me. And so with that, I want to thank you for joining me today on FOMO Sapiens. If you want to find out more about me, you can go to patrickmcginnis.com. And if you like the podcast, definitely give us a 5-star rating, a review, and share this podcast with your friends. So thanks for being here. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time on FOMO Sapiens.